Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today we're exploring a world that might seem ordinary at first glance, but trust me, it's far from it.
Oh, I agree.
We're talking about how birds find food.
Fascinating topic.
Right. And to guide us through this, we're going deep into David Sibley's book, What It's Like to Be a Bird.
Excellent choice.
So buckle up, because we're about to uncover a hidden world of avian foraging.
Where senses we humans barely even consider play a huge role.
You got it. By the end of this deep dive, you'll be looking at birds in a whole new light.
I guarantee it.
Okay, let's jump right in. Most people think birds rely solely on their eyesight to find food.
Makes sense, right?
Right, like that classic image of a hawk swooping down on its prey.
Exactly.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That hawk analogy, though, it does hold true for some birds.
Oh, for sure.
Like the wedge-tailed eagle.
Oh, yeah.
They have vision that's 3 to 4 times sharper than ours. Can you imagine spotting a rabbit from hundreds of feet in the air?
No way. I can barely see my phone sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so incredible eyesight for some, but you're saying there's even more to the story.
Oh, there's so much more. Many birds rely on senses we might not even think about.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Let's start by busting a common misconception. The idea that birds have a poor sense of smell.
I have to admit, I kind of thought that too.
I know, right? It's been a long-held belief.
So what's the real story?
Well, for years, scientists were convinced that birds couldn't smell.
And why was that?
Largely due to some, let's say, questionable experiments by John James Audubon.
Ah, Audubon, the famous bird guy.
The very same.
So what did he do?
He tried to prove that turkey vultures, those big soaring birds.
Yeah, I've seen them circling around.
He thought they located food by sight alone.
Interesting.
But his methods weren't exactly, shall we say, rigorous.
Uh-huh. So what went wrong?
Well, Audubon assumed that vultures would be attracted to any rotting carcass. But it turns out they actually prefer fresher meat.
Oh.
So his conclusion that they don't use smell was based on a false premise.
So those vultures were leading scientists astray.
Haha. In a way, yes. Later research, by the way, completely debunked his idea.
So smell is important for birds.
It turns out smell plays a crucial role for many bird species.
Wow. Okay, I'm starting to rethink everything I thought I knew about birds.
I told you. It's fascinating stuff.
So if they're not just relying on sight, what other senses are they using?
Well, let's talk about hearing.
Okay.
Some birds, especially those that hunt at night or in places where it's hard to see, they have incredible hearing.
Like owls.
Exactly. Take the great gray owl, for example.
Oh, yeah.
They can actually hear voles tunneling under the snow.
Wait, really? I always thought that was just a myth.
Nope, it's true.
That's crazy.
They have these asymmetrical ear openings.
Asymmetrical.
Yeah, one's a bit higher than the other.
Yep.
This allows them to pinpoint the location of those tiny voles with amazing precision, even under 2 feet of snow.
Wow. It's like they have built-in sonar.
It's an incredible adaptation.
I guess it makes sense considering how silent owls need to be when they hunt.
Exactly. But interestingly, not all owls rely on hearing to the same extent.
Oh.
The Blakiston's fish owl, for instance.
Never heard of that one.
They hunt in noisy river habitats,
Oh, I see.
where sound would be useless, basically.
Right.
So they've evolved to primarily use their vision instead.
Fascinating. It's like they've adapted to their specific environment.
Precisely.
I never realized there's so much variation in how birds use their senses.
Oh, there's a ton.
This is incredible.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, there's more.
Way more. Remember those oil birds we mentioned earlier?
The ones that live in caves?
Yes. Ones that dwell in pitch-black caves.
Yeah. They've always seemed so mysterious to me. How on earth do they find their way around in complete darkness?
Well, they have a few tricks up their feathery sleeves.
Okay, I'm all ears.
First, they have long bristles around their beaks.
Bristles.
Yeah, kind of like whiskers on a cat.
Oh, interesting.
These bristles help them with tactile sensing.
So they're feeling their way through the darkness.
Exactly. And get this, they also have incredibly light-sensitive eyes.
Wow.
But their most remarkable adaptation, echolocation.
Echolocation, like bats.
You got it. They use clicks.
Clicks.
Yeah, audible clicks that bounce off objects in the cave.
Wow.
This gives them a sort of auditory map of their surroundings.
Amazing. So they're basically like bats.
In a way, yes. They both use echolocation to navigate, but the sounds they produce are different.
Different how?
Well, oil birds use those audible clicks, like I said.
Right.
whereas bats use higher frequency sounds that we can't even hear.
I never knew that.
It's one of the many fascinating things about the natural world.
Okay, so we've got sight, hearing, and now smell.
And touch. Don't forget touch with those oil bird bristles.
Oh, that's right. So many senses.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely. But going back to smell for a second, you said that turkey vultures weren't the only birds with a keen sense of smell.
Right. And it's not just limited to land-based birds either.
Are you talking about seabirds?
Exactly. Seabirds face a unique challenge, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, trying to find food in the vast, seemingly empty expanse of the ocean.
I can't even imagine. It all looks the same to me out there.
Right. So how do they do it?
Yeah, how do they find food?
They've evolved an incredible sense of smell.
Really?
It allows them to detect a specific chemical called dimethyl sulfide, or DMS for short.
DMS. What's that?
It's a compound produced when krill, those tiny crustaceans that many seabirds feed on, are feeding on phytoplankton.
Okay.
To us, it might smell faintly of the ocean or oysters.
Oh, okay.
But to seabirds, it's like a giant dinner bell ringing.
Wait, so they're not smelling the fish themselves?
Yep.
They're smelling the evidence of fish feeding.
You got it.
Wow.
These DMS plumes essentially create an invisible map of food sources in the ocean.
So cool.
And seabirds, with their incredible noses, are able to follow these scent trails over incredibly long distances.
Even in foggy conditions.
Even in foggy conditions.
That's mind-blowing. So the ocean, which seems like a vast empty space to us, is actually a complex olfactory landscape to them.
Precisely.
This is incredible.
And their ability to detect these subtle cues is essential for their survival.
It makes sense.
It allows them to navigate the vastness of the ocean and find food even when visibility is poor.
I'm honestly speechless. Who knew that bird foraging was so sophisticated?
Well, we're just getting started. There's still so much more to uncover about the fascinating world of feathered foodies.
Oh, there's more.
You bet.
Amazing. Before we move on to even more senses, though, I have to ask, what about those stories of birds eating poisonous things?
Yes.
Like I've heard about butcher birds eating cane toads.
Right.
And those Kia parrots in New Zealand eating poisonous plants.
Interesting examples.
How do they survive?
That's a great question. It highlights the incredible adaptability of birds.
So how do they do it?
Take the pied butcher bird, for example.
The one that eats the cane toads.
Exactly. Cane toads are highly toxic, but the butcher birds have learned to flip them over.
Flip them over?
Yeah, and eat them from the belly.
Why?
It helps them avoid the poison glands on the toads' backs.
Oh, clever.
Isn't it? And those Kia parrots, with their reputation for mischief,
I've heard about them.
they've learned to be incredibly selective when they feed on certain plants.
Oh.
They'll carefully extract the edible fruit pulp,
Wow.
avoiding toxic seeds, roots, and leaves.
That's amazing. It's like they're little chefs, carefully prepping their meals to avoid the poisonous bits.
Exactly. It all comes back to the fact that birds are far more intelligent and adaptable than we often give them credit for.
I'm learning so much.
Me too.
This is blowing my mind. I feel like my whole understanding of birds has been turned upside down.
And we haven't even talked about cooperative foraging yet.
Cooperative foraging.
You bet.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. Tell me more.
Well, stay tuned because we're about to explore how birds work together to find food.
I can't wait.
It's amazing stuff, I promise.
This deep dive is already exceeding all my expectations.
I'm glad to hear it.
Welcome back, everyone.
Ready for more?
Oh, absolutely. I'm still thinking about those incredible bird senses we talked about.
Amazing, aren't they?
Seriously. And before the break, you mentioned cooperative foraging.
Oh, yeah.
I'm dying to hear more about that. Do birds actually work together to find food?
They do. And it's not just about following each other to a good food source. Remember those cliff swallows we mentioned?
Right. They were sharing info about those insect swarms.
Exactly. But some birds have developed even more elaborate strategies.
Okay, now you've really got me intrigued. What kind of strategies are we talking about?
Well, one amazing example is the Harris's hawk.
Harris's hawk.
These hawks, they live in family groups, and they've developed incredible teamwork when it comes to hunting.
So like a pack of wolves, but with feathers.
Exactly. They use these coordinated maneuvers to flush out and capture their prey.
Wow.
Like some hawks might perch in strategic locations.
Oh, I see, like an ambush.
Exactly. While others fly in formation, driving the prey towards their waiting companions.
That's incredible. It sounds like they have their own Air Force squadron.
It's a remarkable display of communication and coordination.
It really is.
And it's not just limited to hawks, by the way.
Oh.
There are several other bird species that engage in cooperative hunting.
That's Fascinating.
each with its own unique approach.
Okay, before you go on, I have to ask about something that's always puzzled me. What about those birds that steal food from others?
Ah, yes.
Like, aren't seagulls notorious for that?
Oh, absolutely. They are indeed experts at what we call kleptoparasitism.
Klepto what?
Kleptoparasitism.
Okay, I'm going to need you to break that down for me.
Haha, no problem.
Oh.
It essentially means stealing food from other animals.
Oh, okay. Like a bird bandit.
Exactly.
It always seemed a bit unfair to me.
I know, right?
But I guess in nature, it's all about survival.
It is. But what's interesting is that sometimes this behavior can actually benefit both parties involved.
Both parties. The thief and the victim.
Well, yeah. Think about frigate birds.
Frigate birds, those are the ones with the huge wingspans, right?
That's right. They're often seen harassing other seabirds, forcing them to regurgitate their catch.
That's harsh.
It is, but then the frigate bird swoops in and steals the food.
Okay, that definitely seems rude. But you said it could be beneficial for both birds. How does that work?
Well, think about it from the perspective of the bird being harassed. Sure, it might lose some of its meal,
Right.
but it also avoids a potentially dangerous confrontation with that larger frigate bird.
Oh, I see.
So it's like a calculated risk.
Like a form of insurance, maybe? Paying a small price to avoid a bigger risk?
Exactly. You got it.
Wow, I never thought about it that way.
It's all about perspective, right?
This is all so fascinating. We've covered so much ground, from super sensitive noses to cooperative hunting to birds that eat poisonous prey. It's clear that bird foraging is incredibly complex.
It truly is. And one thing that really stands out to me is the sheer diversity of foraging adaptations we see in the bird world.
It's amazing.
It speaks to the power of natural selection, shaping behavior over millions of years.
Speaking of adaptations, I keep thinking back to those Blakiston's fish owls we talked about.
The ones with the amazing eyesight?
Yeah, the ones that hunt in those noisy rivers.
Oh, yeah. They face a unique challenge, for sure.
Especially when they're trying to catch those massive salmon.
Oh, absolutely. I read about this one researcher.
Oh, yeah.
Jonathan Slay. He's been studying them for years.
Wow.
And he described this incredible scene.
What happened?
An owl trying to haul in a salmon that was almost as big as it was. And get this, the owl actually used a nearby tree root as leverage to help it lift the fish onto the bank.
Wow. That's amazing. It's like they're using tools.
It's incredible, isn't it?
They're so resourceful.
Resourcefulness is definitely key in the bird world.
Makes sense.
And speaking of resourceful, remember those loggerhead shrikes we mentioned earlier?
The ones with that interesting hunting technique.
Exactly. The twist, as we called it.
Yeah, that's the one.
They have this fascinating, if somewhat gruesome, hunting technique.
Remind me how it works again?
They'll repeatedly bite the head or neck of their prey.
Oh, right.
And then shake it violently until they break its neck.
It sounds a bit brutal.
It is, but it's pretty effective.
I guess in the wild, you gotta do what you gotta do to survive.
That's the truth.
We've talked a lot about competition and survival. But I'm curious, do birds ever show any signs of altruism when it comes to food?
Altruism.
Like, do they ever share food with others who might be struggling?
That's a really interesting question. It's one that's intrigued researchers for a long time.
I bet.
There's definitely evidence of food sharing in some bird species.
Oh, okay.
Particularly among family groups.
That makes sense.
Like parents regurgitating food for their chicks.
Right.
Or siblings sharing food with each other.
I've seen that before.
It's all about ensuring the survival of their genes.
Right? So what about sharing with non-relatives? Any evidence of that?
There have been some observations of food sharing between unrelated birds.
Really?
But it's not as common. And the reasons behind it are still being debated.
So we don't really know why they do it.
Not for sure. Some scientists believe it could be a form of reciprocal altruism.
Reciprocal altruism. So like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Exactly. Birds might share food with the expectation that the favor will be returned in the future.
Makes sense. Like they're investing in their social network.
That's a great way to put it. Others believe it might be a way to reduce conflict.
Oh, interesting.
Or maintain social bonds within a group.
So lots of possible explanations.
There is. That's what makes studying animal behavior so fascinating. There's always more to learn and discover.
You mentioned earlier that birds might use smell to navigate.
I did.
But I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that.
How so?
Can they really smell their way home from hundreds of miles away?
That's a great question. And it's one that has puzzled scientists for decades.
It's amazing to think about.
While we know that birds use a combination of visual landmarks and the Earth's magnetic field to navigate,
Right.
There's growing evidence that smell also plays a role, especially over long distances.
So you're saying they have some sort of internal GPS system that includes smell?
It seems that way. Studies have shown that some birds, like pigeons,
Pigeons.
yeah, they're incredibly sensitive to subtle variations in the Earth's atmospheric composition.
Really? So they're not just smelling things on the ground?
Nope. They can actually detect minute differences in the concentrations of certain compounds.
What kind of compounds?
Oh, things like volatile organic compounds.
Yeah.
They vary depending on location.
Wow. So they're kind of smelling the air.
In a way, yes. It's not like they're smelling specific objects.
Right.
But they're picking up on these subtle olfactory cues that help them create a mental map of their surroundings.
It's like they're smelling their way around the world.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
It just goes to show how much we still don't understand about the amazing sensory abilities of birds.
This entire deep dive has been one aha moment after another.
Me too.
I think it's important to remember that we humans are just one species among many.
Absolutely.
We have our own unique ways of perceiving the world.
We do.
But that doesn't mean they're the only ways or even the best ways.
Right.
Maybe by trying to understand how other animals experience the world, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the incredible diversity of life on Earth.
I couldn't agree more.
This has been such an eye-opening experience. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's been a fascinating journey.
Before we move on to our final thoughts, though, there's one more thing I wanted to ask you about.
Sure. What is it?
I'm curious about something we haven't touched on yet. It's about something David Sibley mentioned in his book.
Oh, interesting. Let's hear it.
It has to do with bird behavior.
Okay, I'm listening.
So it's about bird behavior.
Oh, intrigued me.
Well, Sibley talks about how some birds will actually pretend to be injured.
Pretend.
Yeah. To lure predators away from their nests.
That's interesting.
I know, right?
That's a pretty risky strategy.
It is.
But I guess it can be effective.
Yeah. It's amazing what parents will do to protect their young.
It really is. It speaks to the strength of those parental instincts.
Absolutely. But how do they know to do that?
That's a great question. It's likely a combination of instinct and learned behavior. Young birds might observe their parents doing it.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then over time, they perfect the technique themselves.
It's like they're putting on a little performance.
Exactly. A dramatic distraction to save their offspring.
I wonder if there are any other examples of birds using deception or trickery.
Oh, I'm sure there are. The natural world is full of surprises.
I love it. It's like there's always something new to discover.
Exactly. And that's what makes studying animal behavior so endlessly fascinating.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have. From super senses to foraging strategies to cooperative hunting and even a bit of trickery.
It's been an incredible journey.
It really has.
And I think we've accomplished our mission.
I agree.
We've revealed the hidden world of avian foraging and shown just how complex and fascinating it truly is.
And I hope our listeners have gained a new appreciation for the intelligence and resourcefulness of birds.
Me too. Any final thoughts for our feathered foodie enthusiasts out there?
Just this. The next time you see a bird, take a moment to consider all the amazing things it's capable of.
Oh, yeah.
All the senses it's using, the strategies it's employing, the challenges it's overcoming just to find its next meal.
That's a great reminder.
That's a whole world out there, hidden in plain sight.
And it's just waiting to be discovered.
Exactly.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for this deep dive into the world of feathered foodies. We've explored their incredible sensory abilities, their diverse foraging strategies, and their remarkable adaptations.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed this journey as much as we have.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning,
And keep wondering
about the amazing world of birds.